Hi everyone, welcome to our 16th episode of Brew Talk with Mr.Beer. My name is Robert Luce, host for today's show. I have Ashley back again for a second week. Thanks for tuning in to watch us. We got a great topic for you today. Before we dive into it, let's talk about what we're drinking. Actually relates to our topic.
Yes.
I have our Vacation IPA. It's a new gluten-free recipe we're coming out with this week. Ashley's drinking.
This is a prototype recipe. It is a Belgian Noble IPA, and I'm quite fond of it.
Also gluten-free.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so we are diving into the gluten-free arena, which is what our topic is today, is our gluten-free recipes. So this episode corresponds with 4 new recipes we're releasing this week. They'll be released on Friday. It's our gluten-free recipes. Ashley's kind of been the leader and the thought thinker, the mover of all this agenda that we're moving into. So I thought it'd be great to have her on to talk about the recipes, talk about gluten-free brewing, just all that fun stuff. So why gluten-free?
Well, Robert, believe it or not, an estimated 31 to 40% of the world's population carries the genetic predisposition for celiac disease. So that would be the HLA-DQ sequence of genes. Celiac is an autoimmune disease that when people consume gluten that have celiac disease, their body produces an immune response that is a lot of times very detrimental and very damaging. And very painful. It can range from mild discomfort to downright being hospitalized and being life-threateningly ill. So yeah, that's why gluten-free.
All right, so the trend in gluten-free beer seems to be getting more popular as celiac disease is kind of becoming more
More understood.
More understood, I guess I would say. So how long have you been brewing and drinking gluten-free beer yourself?
So I've been brewing as a total for almost 9 years now, about 9 years. I have been brewing gluten-free beer for about 5 years now and also drinking it. Prior to that, trying to find gluten-free beer was really difficult, but I've probably been drinking it for almost a decade now, whenever I can find it.
So how has gluten-free brewing changed over the last few years, or is it kind of just a little thing that's out there?
Well, at the end of the day, it's still brewing. So the actual brewing process itself hasn't changed all that much. What has changed, or rather opened, I feel like is a better word, is the knowledge and the accessibility to better gluten-free ingredients. There are whole malt houses now that are dedicated to only malting gluten-free grains, as opposed to a few years ago when it was so much harder to find that stuff.
No, definitely. So that brings us into ingredients. So what are some of the ingredients that are kind of used in gluten-free brewing?
Well, there are several. The primary one we use here is sorghum, but there's also rice, millet, buckwheat, Belgian candy sugar, honey, and even Karo syrup, corn syrup.
Yeah, so we're using the sorghum and the Belgian candy syrup and some of our recipes that we created, making great beer.
Yes.
So since we're on the topic of sorghum, that's our main ingredient in our recipes. What are some of the benefits of using sorghum when brewing? So
sorghum is a great fermentable to use for gluten-free brewing. It's easy to work with. It's available in extract form, and when handled properly, if you understand the nature of sorghum and sort of how to treat it, it will treat you really well in return and produce a product that tastes like beer.
All right, so let's dive into our 4 recipes now so people can know what's coming this week. So basically I'm going to mix recipes. Ashley's going to talk about it because she created them all from scratch. Some we challenged her with to create some styles, and she definitely delivered. The first one being our Vacation IPA, which is what I'm drinking here.
Yeah, so the Vacation IPA is probably one of my favorite beers of the 4 that I've created recently. As you know, I'm a big fanatic for hops. I love hops. I love bitter beer. Bitterness and aroma, I'll take it all. If it comes from a hop, give it to me. So that's kind of what inspired this beer. It's very tropical, so it does have that bitter backbone, but it also has that juiciness to kind of counteract it. It's got Simcoe hops in the boil. That's what's providing those bitter notes, and also some of the aroma and flavor. And then there's Azaka as well, and that's a new hop for Mr.Beer, but it is very juicy, peachy, and almost kind of tropical. So that sort of rounds it out.
That's a great beer. It's my go-to of what's on tap right now. You know, it's gluten-free. There's other IPAs, but this is my go-to. Grapefruit crushed pale ale is our second recipe.
Yes. So again, that beer is a pale ale, so it does carry some of that bitterness to it, but then it also has the addition of the grapefruit. And if you're like me and you love grapefruit, especially when the weather is hot, this makes for a great pool beer and even a beer to serve to guests. If you're not as big of a fan of grapefruit as I am, you can always reduce the amount of zest that you use in the recipe too, which makes it a little bit more workable.
So the third one is our Akushla Red Ale.
So this beer was the first one that I produced for Mr.Beer specifically. So it's pretty near and dear to my heart. It's a great beer. It's easy to drink. It has a little bit of hoppiness to it because I made it. Yep. But it's very crushable. Everybody that I've given it to finds it very drinkable and very delicious. And usually people are none the wiser that it is actually a gluten-free beer. Yeah. So Akushla means my darling and more literally my pulse. So I'm pretty sure that if you try it, you brew it, it'll be wrapped around your finger.
That'll be a good one.
Yeah.
So the last one is probably the most challenging one that we had to brew. It is our Mocha Choca Oatmeal Stout.
Yes. So the fine people at Mr.Beer came to me and said, we want you to make gluten-free stout. Go. And I said, challenge accepted. And I feel like I've succeeded
definitely.
In that endeavor. It was definitely challenging. It took a couple of different renditions, but I'm pretty sure that we've nailed it. We use cocoa nibs and coffee beans to impart some of those more dynamic roasty flavors without having to use malts.
Yeah. So that wraps it up for today. Gluten-free recipes, a little gluten-free brewing. We'll spin off a gluten-free series along with what we do with our hop series with Ashley. So we'll have her on more shows, which I think everyone seems to enjoy. We appreciate you taking the time to watch the video today. We hope you learned something. Being gluten-free, I think everyone learned something today. We do post our videos on our YouTube page, on our Facebook page, and on our Mr. Beer website page. Go to mrbeer.com/blog. Videos are there, and you can read the transcripts if you want to and not listen to us talk. If you not enjoy my voice.
Or mine.
Or Ashley's.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed this video, if you would please just give it a thumbs up, share it, like it, comment, just let us know that you're enjoying the content that we're putting out for you. Also, if you want to learn more about Mr. Beer or just brew with Mr. Beer, when you join our Mr. Beer Brewing Society on Facebook, Ashley is in there all the time. She basically controls and runs the group, which is great. You can find this by going to Facebook, searching Mr. Beer's Brewing Society, going to our Facebook page, going to groups, and clicking join from there. You have to answer 3 questions before you join. We'll let you in. Please answer the questions. If you do not, we usually don't let you join because we just don't know who you are.
We don't know who you are.
We're really trying to keep it limited to Mr. Beer brewers. Sharing pictures, great for everyone that's in the group out there watching this. Thanks for all your contribution feedback over the last 3 months. And we look forward to growing with you for the rest of the year. But that wraps up this week. We'll see you guys next week. Cheers.
Cheers.